Hey guys, Poro here, and this time I'm going to give out my LCS 2023 Summer Split Preseason Power Rankings. Only 3 teams kept their rosters intact from spring, so there are a lot of interesting changes to go over. Before we start, I do want to briefly mention that the rosters you see here might not be what you see on the first few days of LCS, due to the LCS Player Association organizing a player walkout in protest of the recent NACL changes. It's too much for me to go over in a video like this, nor do I plan on making one, but I'll link a video with more information if you're interested. In 10th, I've got TSM, who finished 7th in spring. In some ways, this does hurt me. I really like the Revan pickup for coach, and I think Boogie has a lot of potential as a jungler. However, TSM made 2 roster changes, and I think both are downgrades. We have Hauntzer over Solo and Ruby over Maple. Hauntzer may have a lot of experience in the LCS, but his most recent showing in the NACL makes me doubt if he's still on the level of other LCS top laners. I also think importing Ruby is very questionable, as I was not impressed with his performance on Heretics. TSM did also sign Insanity to play mid before Ruby gets into the US, and I think that Insanity is a pretty good pickup. The last time Insanity played LCS, he placed 5th, 6th on a pretty surprisingly effective IMT roster, and he showed a lot of flexibility in champ pool with picks like Jace and Ziggs on top of the standard mages. I was impressed with him and was sad that he didn't get a spot in the following LCS split. I'm excited to see Insanity back in the LCS, even if I do think it's on the worst roster. In 9th, I've got Dignitas, who finished 10th in spring. I do want to preface this by saying that I'm not 100% sure if Diamond is the starting support. I just saw that he's the only support contracted to Dig, and I haven't seen an official roster update from the squad yet. The other pickup for Dig is Rich, who is replacing Armut. While a lot of people question Rich's consistency, he did play a very good split in LCK on Nongshim, and another good split in LPL on V5. I think it's a bit odd as an import slot, but he'll still be a strong top laner in LCS. As I see this as an overall upgraded roster, I have faith in Dig to not get last again. In 8th, I've got Immortals, who finished 9th in spring. The team made 2 swaps exchanging Revenge for Solo and Fleshy for Treats. In my eyes, this is a reasonable change. Revenge has a fairly high ceiling, but can also be inconsistent. Solo, on the other hand, is mostly known as a glue man who can be stable for rosters, so it depends on what you're looking for. I also like the Treats change, as even though Fleshy shows some nice moments on picks like Nautilus, Treats was a strong support during his first few splits in LEC, and I'm excited to see him back. The main reason why I have this roster in 8th instead of 9th or 10th though is Bululu, who is one of my favorite TCL players. He has a unique champ pool and a lot of skill, and the IMT roster did look stronger when Bululu was slotted in near the end of the spring. In 7th is Energy, who are replacing CLG and keeping the top side of the roster, who finished tied 5th, 6th in playoffs. They are swapping out the bot lane though, replacing Luger and Poom with FBI and Ignar. In terms of names, these two definitely are more notable. However, I did think Luger specifically had a lot of potential, and I'm upset that these were the roles Energy decided to swap. FBI has quietly been a decent ADC within the LCS, and Ignar last appeared on a 6th place finishing EG roster. I think the overall ceiling of the team is now lower, even if they might be better initially, which is most of the reason why I moved them down. In 6th is Team Liquid, who decided to keep their entire roster even after a disappointing 8th place finish. They did remove Marin as their coach though, which was a questionable hire to begin with. I think the team does have strong individual players, but there are a lot of question marks over how good some of these promised players were supposed to be. Harry and Jan, for example, were in the academy circuit before spring, but neither have had great success in the LCS so far. CoreJJ has also had a few disappointing splits in a row now, and Pioshik, while being a reigning world champion, was considered one of the lower tier junglers within LCK. Summit is the most dominant player on the roster, with recent playoff performances in both LPL and LCK, but many people criticize his over-aggressive play. I do think the team will benefit from sticking together, but I don't think the ceiling is as high as some people might expect. In 5th is Evil Geniuses, who placed 4th in spring playoffs. Whether due to commitment to player development or just a PR move to cut budget cost, EG has completely rebuilt their roster with only Jojo Pune remaining. I have to say though, despite the reasoning, I actually like what EG put together. Revenge has a high ceiling, Armal performed well in Academy and Scrims even if it hasn't translated to LCS stages in the past, and Ayla was still strong in Academy despite a rough start at FlyQuest. The main name to watch out for on this roster though is Unforgiven, who for those who haven't watched LEC, this guy is a beast who can definitely be a top level ADC in the LCS in no time. It's a risky roster, but it's got potential to be very strong. In 4th, I've got Golden Guardians, who are coming off an impressive MSI run after finishing 2nd in an LCS. Licorice especially was able to step it up and show a lot of improvement from spring. However, this roster lands in 4th for me for a few reasons. I'm still unsure how this roster's bot lane and top lane will perform, especially with 6A and Huzi showing their weaknesses at MSI. On top of that, 100 Thieves and FlyQuest both made roster changes that I view as upgrades, whereas Golden Guardians decided to keep their entire roster. I still think Gory and River are a top tier mid jungle pairing for this region, but the other players have to prove they can keep up. In 3rd, I've got 100 Thieves, who finished tied 5th, 6th in spring. They made 2 roster changes, the first of which being bringing back Someday over Tenacity. While this might be an immediate upgrade, I personally think this is a terrible decision. I think Tenacity is one of the younger faces who has a lot of potential to be very good both in LCS and internationally, and it's a shame that he won't be getting his shot to make a name for himself. Someday is a solid player in LCS though, so it isn't a roster-ending move or anything. The big change for this roster came when Bjergsen decided to step away from the league scene, leaving 100 Thieves to sign Genji Challengers mid laner Quid, who makes some huge potential for this roster. If FaZe and Berserker were anything to show as an example, the LCK Challengers scene is no joke. In second, I've got FlyQuest, who finished 3rd in playoffs and made one roster change. Ayla and Winsome are being swapped out for Vulcan, who many consider to be the best domestic support player the league has to offer. On paper, this should be a clear upgrade that helps FlyQuest achieve better results out of the gate, and I'm excited to see if Prince can show off more of his LCK dominance now that he has a strong veteran support to pair with. Finally, in first, I've got Cloud9, who finished 1st in playoffs. They decided to keep the roster completely together, with M&S playing from day one this time. Ever since M&S came in, this roster has clearly looked like the strongest in the LCS, and I don't believe the roster changes from the other teams will be enough to knock C9 out of first. This C9 roster likely has a top 2 player in every role at minimum, and will be tough for any team to beat, especially after they showed strong early games against BLG internationally. That's going to do it for my LCS list. Next is LCK, and then LEC last, so I'll see you then. Bye!